Well, we're going to continue with our parenting responsibilities, knowing that most kids these days are born with a smartphone or a gaming device in their hands. Setting those boundaries when it comes to technology can be quite an arduous task. Well, luckily, we've got our parenting expert, Nikki Bush, on hand with a play-by-play.
And we're back again with our creative parenting expert, Nikki Bush, who talks to us this morning about the striking of a balance when parents have, of course, have their children consuming a lot of content and media online, and of course they're watching TV, but they also need to have that real human interaction, because I think what parents find is that after long hours of playing a game or being engaged on Facebook, kids find it difficult to extract themselves from that world and come back to reality. How do you do that?
They do, Kat. And it can have physical ramifications and emotional ramifications. So a child who's been watching TV for hours or slouching in front of the gaming console can actually be a little bit off physically, as in their coordination can be off. Like going and kicking a ball in the garden might not be as easy as it was 2 or 3 hours before. Wow. Depending on the child, because everybody's brains is influenced differently by what they're watching, what they're consuming, because the brainwave frequency ratios change. For some children, they can become aggressive and aggro and irritable from TV or gaming. For other children, they can become super relaxed. So if they were trying to do homework after that, that would just not work at all. Yeah. But when children have become immersed over a couple of hours, it sometimes helps to give them an end point. So actually, before they even start, you know you're going to let them, it's a Saturday, you know you're going to let them do 2 or 3 hours. Tell them that at lunchtime, you will all be going out for lunch, or you're going to be visiting Granny, or you're going off to the, whatever it is, kick a rugby ball in the park together. Give them an end point that is very physical, so that they already know what's coming next. Because otherwise it can be like, dragging them away from this. And they can do it kicking and screaming. So they need to know there's always boundaries.
I was about to say that. So what happens when little one says, but mommy, my favorite TV show is coming on at that time? What then? How do you even negotiate this thing with your child? Or do you say, no, that's what I said?
You know what? There's such a thing as a PVR, etc. So know your technology. Know you can record, and you can decide when they watch. So you can say, you know what? You've just had 2 hours of doing this. We're now going off for an hour to do whatever. When we come back, then you can watch your program. So the thing is that we are still the boss. And it's quite difficult with technology because we know our kids are more gender up than we are on how to use this stuff. It's so easy to take a back seat and let them lead. But if we don't actually put the boundaries in, children are not born knowing how much technology is too much. And we do know that too much is too much. So always celebrate the human bond. Now, of course, with all these fancy integrations of television, there's a possibility of parents being able to set a particular channel as non-accessible to their children. But when it comes to our online content on our phones, that tends to be a bit more complicated. So how do parents go about monitoring the fact that, you know, the games that their children are playing online are suitable for their children? How do you do that? Well, it's a little tricky. You can put some parental control software onto devices. You can actually monitor exactly what children are downloading, doing, using, who they're speaking to. You can actually have a full-on belts and braces solution where you are literally almost spying on your children, on their every move.
Should you let them know, like, Dad is spying on you, like, don't even try?
Well, you know, if this is a difficult one. If they grow up with being monitored so tightly, it's probably just a given. They just know that you're kind of lurking there in the background. It's much more difficult if you already have a teenager and you suddenly decide to start actually watching and spying on them. And that is going to bring up a whole lot of resistance. And then it's going to be more beneficial to have those conversations about what's good for your brain, what's bad for your brain. It's a little bit like if you've never played with your child in the early years, you can't suddenly start playing games with them at the age of 14 because they'll just look at you as if you're cooked and go, whatever, you know. But the biggest thing is to keep your relationship with your child active. If you have a good relationship with your child, you can have conversations with your child. You can talk to them about the impact and the effect of these things on their brain, on their being. You can give them feedback about how they're being. And there are situations where you have to pull the plug.
Absolutely.
Where parents have to just be the
parents. It's called that
parents.
parental instinct, and you better start using it. Thank you so much, Nikki. We really do appreciate it. Of course, we're talking about how to help guide your child through this digital world. I tell you what, here's a website that you both, as a parent and your child, can explore together. It's called www.expressoshow.com.